Okay, so by no measure this is everything you need to know about rigging at all, but it's gonna be a good, useful introduction in the spirit of the assignment we had. So rigging is a way to deform an object. Here we have the silly little cube, the origin of the world here. I'm going to add a couple of a couple of divisions actually. And I like to do the ring thing with a demo that I called Cactus problem. It's not really a problem, but you know, Cactus have this like humanoid thing, kind of like in the Western. There was a supermarket chain, Western Beef or something like that, that had a cacti. It was kind of cute. And I know that it looks a bit Roblox right now, but if I, you know, add some. Oh, actually no, that doesn't look that great. I'll add it here, so that it doesn't look like a dick. I'll put it here, and it's a very nice cactus, but this part has to be even bigger. Okay, yeah, it looks a bit Roblox. So how do we deal with the Robloxiness? We just delete this face, the base face, and then we add a modifier that, as you know, I love the subdivision modifier, and I'm going to select some vertices and just make it a bit nicer. I'm going to press Ctrl R to add some other subdivision, and Ctrl R so I have some other subdivision. As soon as I make it, I press S so I can make it smaller, and I can press and make it smaller, and if I press Alt or Option, I can also enlarge some parts of the cacti. You know, when they have good years, they become larger. And you can even sculpt it and etc. And I'll add some other viewport subdivisions here. And shade smooth. Cool, we have a cacti. Great. I'll apply everything. Nice model. Great. Armatures. You add an object that is called Shift A. In object mode, you go into Shift A and you add an armature. By default, if there's nothing installed in Blender, clicking on armature is going to add a single bone. You see this here because I have Rigify enabled, but single bone or armature, whatever you do, is going to create a bone that is pointing upwards, kind of phallic, in the center of the scene. If I click on the X-ray thing, I can see there's that little obelisk, and I'm gonna put it here, and I'm gonna put this as my driving bone, so it's outside of the thing, but it works as a sort of like pillar or of sorts. I'm gonna put this here then, and I'm going to make this the column. I'm gonna make this an arm, another arm. I'm going to select this thing, press E to extrude, and I'm gonna make this more of an elbow thing, and then the arm, and then that. And then I know, because I have X-ray, that there might be another one there, so an elbow, sorry, a shoulder, and that's better. Great, shoulder thing, and then I go back, and this is going to be kind of like the neck, and there we have this armature or skeleton. Great, so now we have it there, and we select the object to be animated, then shift click on the skeleton, then you press Ctrl+P for parenting, because this is like, you know, kind of like a hierarchical relationship. And if you did the order correctly, Harry Potter, you will get armature deformed with automatic weights, and you just click that. And now this wonderful, amazing thing happens, that if you click pose and you move the thing, you can deform the parts, which is all well and good, but a bit boring. You know, it can flex it a bit, biceps and everything. Yeah, it's kind of, yeah, nice. I can rotate the joint even until it basically is cut. I can pick a bundle of this, and they are kind of hierarchical, so I can make them a bit, I can use it as a deformation tool, so to speak, to sort of like pose the cacti, but it's a bit boring. So there are this thing called bone constraints to help you out with that. The first one is that one that you see here. It looks like some sort of like beef steak. I think it's not a great icon, but it's supposed to symbolize a bone and the symbol of, that you see here, a constraint, relationship between one thing and another. So it's like relationships between bones. Sounds very depressing. But you do inverse kinematic, for instance, is a classic. I will add a bone constraint with this one here, and you'll see that there's a line that points down there. But if you do that the chain length is 2, it's just gonna have a relationship with the bone that is preceding, and I love this relationship because this relationship is based on it's a Pythagoras triangle. Basically, cannot go over 180, and it always tries to keep the shape of the triangle. And it's called inverse kinematics. The word kinematics comes from like kinema, motion, and it's called inverse kinematics. Sounds fancy, but it just means the motion is not coming from inside the cacti, but from outside, kind of like in a puppet. The puppet seems to move from inside, from within, from their heart, but it's actually moved from the wrists. That's the big lie of Pinocchio. That's why, like, Pinocchio has inverse kinematics and he wants to become a real boy, meaning I don't want to have inverse kinematics, I want to have forward kinematics. But we're just gonna Pinocchio this one. Might become a real boy in the future, but not now. This one is working nicely, and then bone constraint. We choose this one. We set the chain length to 2, and great. Since this part has an elbow, it is finite k, which I didn't want to. It's ik, length of 2. Since this one I didn't want has an elbow, it sort of deforms better, which is great. And this one, you can even like add deformations to this one too, to do ik and set the length to, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you move this one, it will also affect the other ones. Good for sharks and stuff like that. So that is basic rigging. I'm going to go on and show you some other examples. Sorry for that confusing camera angles, but I'm going to show other constraints and things like that as follows. But if you know these already, like you're sort of good. Okay, this one is kind of a classic. I added a sphere here. So for narrative purposes, we're going to pretend that this sphere is the sun. Okay, how do we make that pretension more easy? We add a material to the sphere, so we go into the material, which is that sphere that has a checkerboard, press new, and we know that the sun is very bright, so we go back into emission, and we say that it's a very bright emission, and you say like, wait a minute, it's not emitting nothing. Yes, so you press that to change the color so that it's actually emitting something. And if it's a cacti, we sort of wanted to have a new material too, so we're gonna, it says already material, so we press the minus sign to take a material, we'll press new, and we make it greenish, and there's the landscape. I don't know what happened with me on the far west this time. And I'm going to add a plane of desert. This is sort of the bonus point, okay? But in any case, I'm going to check on the armature. I don't see the armature, so I go to the dancing body, viewport display in front. Great, now we see the armature. We select the armature, we go into pose mode, and this is kind of a very convenient deformation, okay? bound constraint. So again, in post mode, we go into bound constraint, we select that one that is the head, and we add a bound constraint that is called damped track. So what this will do is to make that bone look somewhere, which in this case is going to be the sun. And you might notice this is kind of a classic problem of this, but kind of a cute little thing. It sort of went nuts, and it's pointing with the wrong, like sort of the wrong thing. And that happens because, I'm going to go back into post mode. On the properties of that thing, you have what is the track axis, which is kind of a way to tell the software where the eyes are, or like what the face is. At this point, basically Blender thinks that it looks with cacti look with the head, but we want it to the track axis to be Z, and that way it's a bit more natural. If we set Z minus, of course it's going to be awful, so just Z. And you can regulate the influence and everything. So now if I go back, the sun, the cacti is gonna follow the sun around, which is kind of cute. And most of the things about rigs work in a way like this. Most of the time you have, like Rigify has this, you don't want to move the bones manually, so you have an object that drives the rig, which can be a sun, which makes sense for cacti, but which could be another thing. Actually, last bonus, I'm going to add an object, so I want the sun to be like shiny, so I'm going to put a point light that I'm going to make extremely bright, like 1,000 or so, 5,000, very bright, and I'm going to make it sun bright. I'm going to put it in the center of the sphere. If I put it there, it won't be as bright, so I'm just going to put it here. And I can say that this is the child, this is the parent. I press Command P, object, and now if I move the sun, it's kind of cute, right? But it moves with that thing. Another interesting thing about these deformation things, we have a camera in the scene, right? Remember, you can press the camera icon and it looks at the camera. I can select the camera even. Cameras also can have constraints, so I can click on the constraint icon and say that it's a damped track that looks at the sphere or the sun. And what should happen, I move back here, and I managed to locate that camera, is that the camera is, I have to put it to -Z. So now the camera is moving, is looking at the sun all the time, and if I go into the camera view and I move the sun, the camera is always following the sun. So this way you can have like sort of automatically driven camera moves. And you don't have to move the camera manually, which is very, very useful. You can do a lot of stuff with constraints.